You feel like you don't belong anywhere. That's not a personality flaw, it is not your fault. Picture the last party you walked into. Heads turned just for a second. Then everyone looked away. That drop in your chest wasn't random. Here's what's actually happening. And scientists finally traced it back to something ancient. Most people assume it means something is wrong with them. Too sensitive, too awkward, somehow unlikable. That assumption is wrong. Your brain isn't diagnosing a flaw. It's running an old measurement, one shaped over a vast stretch of human evolution, when people lived in small, tightly connected groups, where losing the group could mean losing food, protection, and help. Imagine being cast out of that band. No car to drive away in, no city to disappear into. Just open grassland, alone, at night, no fire, no watchers. Your nervous system still remembers that world. It never got the memo that the grassland is gone. Now imagine a hunter with a broken leg. He can't carry his own water anymore. He can't outrun anything that's hunting him either. In that exact moment, he needs people who'll stay. With nothing coming back to them for weeks, most people also believe friendship runs on a ledger. You help someone, they owe you. They help you back later, the debt clears. Evolutionary psychologists John Tooby and Leda Cosmides studied that assumption closely, and they found a serious problem with it. What happens the day you have nothing left to trade? Picture a bank. You walk in, desperate for a loan, bills stacked on the counter. The banker looks over your file and says, "No, you're too much of a risk right now." But if you don't need it at all, the story flips. The bank hands it over instantly. Tooby and Cosmides named this the banker's paradox. Now apply that same logic to friendship. A strict ledger should collapse right when you need it most. You'd have no favor left to offer. A pure accountant of a friend walks away exactly then. That's not a rare glitch in the system. That's the ledger model working exactly as designed. It should leave you stranded in your worst moment. Every time, without exception. But humans don't actually get stranded that easily. Someone shows up at the hospital anyway. Someone drives 4 hours with no warning. No expectation of repayment, even when you have nothing to give back. So the ledger alone can't be the full story. Natural selection had to build something else. A second system, running quietly underneath the ledger. They called it deep engagement friendship. Your mind keeps a constant internal reading of exactly how much each person values you. Not what they owe you, how much your welfare actually matters to them, as if it were their own. Researchers call this a welfare trade-off ratio. You're running it right now, on everyone around you, without ever choosing to. Watch it in action for a second. A close friend gets genuinely happy about your good news. No angle in it at all. A stranger just nods politely and moves on. An acquaintance forgets the news within a day. That difference isn't manners. That's 3 very different scores, read off the same internal instrument. That reading is the actual feeling of belonging, not politeness, not proximity. A felt sense that someone has internalized your survival as their own concern. When that reading comes back low, your body reacts immediately. It doesn't wait for proof. For most of human history, a low reading meant real danger, not a bad mood to shrug off. This wasn't just theory sitting in a journal. Primatologist Joan Silk tracked this exact pattern in the wild. Female Chakma baboons in the Moremi Game Reserve, deep in Botswana's Okavango Delta. Some formed close, stable bonds with the same females for years, grooming daily, sitting near them, backing them in fights. Others drifted between weaker, shifting relationships instead. Silk's team logged these bonds from 1992 to 2007. 15 years of grooming records, tracking exactly whose infants lived and whose didn't. Here's the part that should stop you cold. The offspring of the closely bonded females lived significantly longer, meaningfully longer, across the whole 15-year study. And this wasn't just about rank in the troop. High-ranking mothers with weak bonds still lost that advantage. It wasn't just about nearby relatives either. The association remained even after accounting for maternal rank and number of kin. And the gap never closed, even as those offspring reached adulthood. Belonging isn't a mood in baboons. It's measured in whether their children live. Your own body runs on that same wiring, inherited from the same primate lineage. A system that reads isolation as danger isn't malfunctioning. It's doing precisely what kept infants alive for millions of years, now translated into a feeling instead of a body count. So here's the actual problem. That system was calibrated for bands of a few dozen people, everyone you'd meet for an entire life from birth to death. Now picture your actual week, a dorm of 200 strangers, an office with a name badge and no shared history, coworkers, classmates, faces on a feed, people at that party you walked into, names you'll forget by next week. How many of those faces were ever going to run your survival calculations? Almost none of them, structurally by design. Nobody scrolling past your post has internalized your survival. No stranger at a party owes you deep engagement. Your tracker still checks every single one of them anyway. And it reads that silence as evidence. Evidence that you don't matter here, evidence you don't belong anywhere at all, but it's counting the wrong population entirely. It's treating hundreds of strangers as hundreds of failed bonds. The system was only ever built to track a handful of people, one or two who'd show up with nothing to gain. That's not proof you're unlikable, that's an old sample size problem, running inside a world it was never built to read. There's a second trap layered on top of this one. A like costs nothing to give. A follower count updates itself while you sleep. Grooming, in a baboon troop, cost real time. Time an animal could have spent eating or resting instead. That cost is exactly what made it meaningful data. A number on a screen carries none of that cost, so your ancient tracker barely registers it as evidence, no matter how high it climbs. Move to a new city, and this gets worse. Before it gets better, every face is unfamiliar, all at once. Every face starts with almost no evidence of deep investment. Your body treats a normal Tuesday like exile from the band. That panic isn't weakness. It's the correct output from an ancient formula, fed data it has genuinely never seen before. What if belonging was never about the room at all? That ache at a crowded party isn't a verdict on your worth. It's an old radar doing its exact job, in a world it never evolved for. Fed the wrong data, by a world that grew too big, too fast. The baboons never had to solve this. Their whole world stayed a few dozen animals wide, for their entire lives. You don't need hundreds of high welfare trade-off scores. Baboon mothers in Botswana didn't need the whole troop grooming them either. They needed one or two partners who stayed close through everything, year after year, through droughts, through predators, through everything else. That's the actual bar your body is waiting to clear. Not a room, not a feed. One relationship your ancient tracker can finally register as real. You were never broken for feeling like you don't belong anywhere. Your body was just counting the wrong room. It was never asking you to be liked by everyone in it, only found by someone in it. Find the 2 or 3 people who would show up. With nothing to gain, let them close the gap that 100 strangers never could. That old system finally reads what it was built to read. All along, this was never your fault.